Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Well, the situation in the Middle East is getting more and more tense by the day. Israel is fighting on two fronts, against Hamas in Gaza and against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. A complex situation for which there seems to be no immediate solution. Well, to discuss what the options are for Israel and other countries in the region, we're joined by Mr. James Bowden. He's a media consultant with the Near East Observers. Mr. Bowden, welcome and thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be with you.
Pleasure to have you, Mr. Bowden. Now, let's start with the U.S. attitude towards Israel's actions in Lebanon. There seems to be a bit of ambivalence there, with Lloyd Austin saying one thing and Biden saying that he wishes Israel would stop. What do you make of this?
Well, we have seen over the course of the Biden administration that there are different policies being enacted at the same time. This has led to a lot of speculation that there's not a lot of top-level leadership, that many of the departments are exercising their own policies in the region, apart from the president. And so I am not surprised to hear different messages coming from the Pentagon as well as from the White House. We definitely hear a lot of support and baseline support from the Pentagon, which is expected because Israel is a U.S. ally. But Biden certainly has his own personal political agenda and his desire to see not only peace restored to the Middle East, but also to restore the balance and situation between Israel and the Palestinians and the Lebanese. That has been a key part of his foreign policy, if there is a foreign policy. Especially to keep the elements here in the United States, the Arabs here in the United States, satisfied.
Understood, Mr. Bowden. But I mean, this isn't much help to the Israeli government, is it? I mean, the US is a major supporter of Israel in terms of military material, I beg your pardon. I mean, so what's the message that they are receiving? I mean, is Lloyd Austin's stance basically sufficient reassurance?
I'm not really sure that it does go far enough. I think that the Israelis will probably have to be satisfied with what they are getting right now, considering the administration that they are dealing with. It is a very tough situation that they are in right now, but also realize and understand that Israel is acting, as I have said, off the chain. They are acting in a way in which they're very unconcerned about Washington. I mean, yes, they want Washington's support. They need the military material in order to conduct these operations, but in many ways, they are ready to push out and hit whatever targets that they need to, with or without the United States.
Understood. Now, it is generally accepted, isn't it, Mr. Bowden, that basically Iran is the protagonist here, funding and training these extremist groups, Hezbollah and Hamas. What do you see as the US strategy to deal with this threat?
From a U.S. perspective, I'm not really sure. I very closely monitor the Israeli perspective and that from the Middle East, and so how Washington is wanting to address that, I can't be 100% clear, especially because Washington has not been clear. Again, it has been a remarkable 4 years to watch an administration that has floundered from one Middle East crisis to another and has developed policy almost overnight. And so there's real no sense of what they really want to accomplish except for no conflict. I mean, that's basically where it ends, where it begins and ends. And so whatever would accomplish that mission, be it a ceasefire, be it putting troops in the region, you know, they're just trying to stop the fighting. And that's basically it. And so even with respect to Hezbollah and the other groups in the Middle East, we have seen that the administration has not taken that seriously. The Israelis have attacked the Houthis down in Yemen far more seriously and far more effectively than the United States military. So, I've talked with many colleagues on this that we are just very surprised to see how very easygoing and relaxed the U.S. has been as far as the Houthi situation. That has been, in many ways, much more detrimental, especially to our ally Egypt in the region, than even Hezbollah. Hezbollah is just sending, or they were sending, missiles over the border for a range of 2.5, 5 miles and hitting a lot of empty homes or fields and empty warehouses and causing some fires and such. But the Houthi situation had drained billions of dollars from the Egyptian economy up to this point. And yet the United States has been, even with its military forces down there in the Bab al-Mandab, just kind of loitering around. Yes, we've seen some airstrikes, but nothing as intensive as what the Israelis have done.
Right, so a pretty disjointed effort, it seems to me you're saying, by the US in the region. However, the Iranian effort seems to be very focused. Basically the overthrow of Israel, the occupation of Israel, and, well, some possibly terrible things after that. Do you think that there is going to be any impact on the war between Hezbollah and Israel after the death of the Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah?
Well, I think that the death of Hassan Nasrallah actually opens us up to a lot greater danger. Nasrallah had been responsible for taking Hezbollah in a much less radical and much more institutionalized posture. He had made Hezbollah basically the chief element of resistance on the border and had been very public and vocal that Hezbollah would not engage Israel unless Israel had broached the border. And he had done a lot to demonstrate that was continued Hezbollah policy. And so by killing him, Israel has opened up a situation where now we're going to have to deal with a devil that we don't know. And we're going to have to see whether that new leader is going to remain in that institutionalization process, or if we're going to actually see a more active, more aggressive Hezbollah organization once it recovers from this current crisis. Right now, and I think until everything gets quiet again, that's going to be a very difficult decision for Hezbollah to make, because right now they're just fighting for their lives.
Well, so would you say that the decapitation, if you like, of Hezbollah is the reason that Israeli forces are actually entering southern Lebanon, attacking southern Lebanon with artillery and airstrikes in order to maximize on the advantage of not having that leadership?
Well, I think the two are not specifically. They're related, but they're not logically following. And what I mean by that is that That was part of the overall strategy or tactics, rather, to invade Lebanon. They knew that they would want to take out the leadership. We have seen them over the course of about 2 weeks progressively eliminate people on different levels of the hierarchy. So the lower level operatives and soldiers with the pager devices and the cell phones. Then they have been progressively moving up the hierarchy chain and taking out commanders and doing that through targeted assassinations. And then they moved on to Nasrallah. So it's been an increasingly narrow focus. But Israel could have moved across the border even if Nasrallah was still alive. That was just something that proved to be a significant advantage, definitely if you don't have your organizational head. But Hezbollah does have commanders, it does have an echelon, and so they were really wanting to eliminate the command structure, especially on the lower level, and also disrupt communications. So with or without Nasrallah, they were going in.
Right. Now, one of the major criticisms leveled against Israel is civilian deaths as a result of airstrikes and other military action in Gaza and in Lebanon. How would you assess Israel's willingness to protect civilians while defending themselves?
I mean, it's been horrible. It's been terrible. It's been tragic to watch Israel's willingness to kill so many people on the possibility of getting just one person. I mean, these apartment buildings are more like condos where you have families owning different levels. And to kill sometimes so many people just for one soldier or operative, I think is absolutely wrong. And I don't think that Israel has been exercising the proper restraint as far as protecting civilians. We saw this down in Gaza, treating 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds and teenagers as though they are Hamas. And now they're doing the exact same thing up in the southern suburbs of Beirut. And I think it's a real tragedy. But back early on in the beginning of this war, it was released that Israel had outsourced, much of their targeting procedures to an AI, an artificial intelligence program, which would select and calculate different targets. And apparently they have used that without any consideration as to the human suffering and the human toll.
Understand, but some would say that perhaps one of the major reasons for the civilian death toll is the fact that the Hamas and Hezbollah fighters are actually hiding in civilian areas, in refugee camps, deliberately to get public opinion turned against Israel. What would you say to those people?
I would say that both can be true at the same time. What we are seeing is a very tragic situation in which both sides can have a very callous disregard for human life. And yes, we know that Hezbollah and we know that Hamas have placed their soldiers or operatives inside civilian gatherings for the purpose of trying to use them as human shields. But obviously, and I think Israel has shown over the last year that that is a failing and losing strategy.
Right.
And, so both sides need to recognize that they are causing tremendous suffering for these people. And I think that's the greatest regret that I have.
Indeed, and let's hope those numbers come down dramatically. Mr. James Bowden, thank you very much indeed for sharing your insights with our audience. Have a good day, sir.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all from us in this episode of World Talks. Don't go away. As always, lots more coming up. Goodbye.